So this is Shloka 4.11. Please recite after me. Ye yatha mam prabhadyante.
Ye yatha mam prapadyante
Tam tathaiva bhajamyaham.
Tathaiva bhajamyaham.
Mama vartmanu vartante.
Mama vatmanu vartante
Manushyaः partha sarvashah.
Manushyaha partha sarvashah
Ye yatha mam prabhadyante.
Ye yatha mam prapadyante
Tam tathaiva bhajamyaham.
Tathaiva bhajamyaham
Mama vartmanu vartante.
Mama vatmanu vartante
Manushyaः partha sarvashah.
Manushyaha partha sarvashah.
Because the visarga is followed by a pa, you are not going to pronounce the visarga. Manushyaः partha sarvashah. So the ha will become fa. Manushyaः partha sarvashah. Ye yata mam prabhadyante.
Ye yatha mam prapadyante
Tam tathaiva bhajamyaham.
Tathaiva bhajamyaham
Mama vartmanu vartante.
Mama vatmanu vartante
Manushyaः partha sarvashah.
Manushyaha partha sarvashah.
Word for word meaning, translation, and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Ye. All who. Yatha. As. Mam. Unto me. Prabhadyante. Surrender. Tan. Them. Tatha. So. Eva. Certainly. Bhajami. Reward. Aham. I. Mama. My. Vartma. Path. Anuvartante. Follow. Manushyaha. All men. Partha. O son of Pritha. Sarvashah. In all respects. Translation. As all surrender unto me,
Unto me,
I reward them accordingly.
I reward them accordingly.
Everyone follows my path.
Everyone follows my path.
In all respects, O son of Pritha.
In all respects, O son of Pritha.
So we will read the purport and then I will explain the important factors in the shloka, because the first half of the shloka is directed to devotees. The second half of the shloka is directed towards the non-devotees. So unless an acharya actually explains these things to us, it's going to be very difficult for us to understand the shlokas by reading it on our own. So what is Krishna saying? Krishna is saying, as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So Krishna is saying, If you surrender to me 10%, my reciprocation with you will be 10%. If you surrender to me 50%, I will reciprocate with you 50%. If you surrender to me 100%, I'm completely under your control. So Krishna is saying, for each one of us, we have a degree of surrender. To that degree of surrender, Krishna will respond to you. The more you exhibit your love and affection and faith in Krishna, the more Krishna will reciprocate with you. Each one of us will experience the mercy of Krishna in different ways because our level of surrender is different. Our level of affection is different. So Krishna is saying, for those who have accepted him as the Supreme Lord and he considers you to be his devotee, he rewards you according to how you interact with him. What is your relationship with Krishna? You want him 100% in your life, or you want him 10% in your life? So Krishna is saying, you get to decide that. If you want him 10% in your life, he will come 10% in your life. If you want him 100% all the time, every time, 24/7, he will be there 24/7 for you. But what is he saying? As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly, which means he is expecting you to take one step towards him. And although our acharyas say, if you take just one step to Krishna, he will take thousands of steps towards you. But still here the Lord is saying, the way you will experience me personally in your life will be completely dependent on the level of your surrender. If you want to experience my mercy fully in your life, then you should fully surrender to me. And then Krishna, in the next statement, in the very next statement, he says, everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pritha. What does this mean? Everyone follows my path. Does it mean Krishna is saying everybody is my devotee? No, that's not what he's saying. He's saying for those who are not my devotees, they want wealth, they want fame, they want beauty, they want intelligence, they want to dominate others. Krishna is saying they may not be my devotees, but everything they are asking for comes from me. Wealth comes from me, knowledge comes from me, intelligence comes from me, beauty comes from me. So whatever they are asking for, actually, they are searching for me. But they don't realize they are searching for me because they think that all of these energies exist independently of Krishna. Therefore, Krishna is saying, even those who are not his devotees, but are seeking all of Krishna's energies in their life, in the form of wealth, prosperity, this, that, and the other, in the form of material desires, Krishna says, actually, they are searching for me. They just don't know it. Because I have to sanction these things for them. They don't know that I am sanctioning it. So in that sense, the second statement applies to non-devotees. Everyone follows my path in all respects, which means even the materialistic people are actually technically dependent on Krishna. Because without Krishna's mercy, how will they get wealth? How will they get fame? How will they get beauty? How will they get a good wife or a good husband? So Krishna is saying they don't realize it. I'm the one in the background sanctioning everything. They may worship me, they may not worship me. They may not even accept me, they may reject me. Still, even if they reject me, I am reciprocating with them. Except they think they are completely independent of me, And because of their hard work, they are getting the results. Krishna says, it's okay, you may work hard, but still I'm the one who's signing the paycheck for whatever that paycheck is. So Prabhupada has written a beautiful purport, and within that purport, he's referenced another shloka in Srimad Bhagavatam. So we will read that shloka also. Purport. Everyone is searching for Krishna in the different aspects of his manifestations. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is partially realized in his impersonal Brahma Jyotir effulgence and as the all-pervading Supersoul dwelling within everything, including the particles of atoms. We will discuss this in a little bit more detail when we come to the Srimad Bhagavatam shloka, because there Sukadev Goswami explains it beautifully. So the first section, remember, Prabhupada is writing, everyone is searching for Krishna, but in different aspects of his manifestations. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is partially realized in his impersonal Brahma Jyotir effulgence and as the all-pervading Supersoul dwelling within everything, including the particles of atoms. But Krishna is fully realized only by his pure devotees. Consequently, Krishna is the object of everyone's realization, and thus anyone and everyone is satisfied according to one's desire to have him. So if you want to experience Krishna and his impersonal aspect, Krishna gives you that benediction also. If you want to experience Krishna and his personal form, Krishna gives you that benediction also. So do you want to worship his formless aspect, or do you want to worship his form? For both categories of devotees, Krishna rewards them accordingly. In the transcendental world also, Krishna reciprocates with his pure devotees in the transcendental attitude, just as the devotee wants him. So Srila Prabhupada is writing, even when we enter the spiritual world, we will have our own special relationship with Krishna. And Krishna will reciprocate according to our mood. So in the next sentence, Prabhupada is explaining this. One devotee may want Krishna as the Supreme Master. This is Dasya Ras. Another as his personal friend. This is Sakhya Ras. Another as his son, Vatsalya Ras. And still another as his lover, Madhurya Ras. So Srila Prabhupada is writing, even when we enter the spiritual world, once we are done with the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease, even there are gradations of love and affection for Krishna. Everybody loves Krishna, but we all love Krishna differently. So Prabhupada is saying, the way we express our love for Krishna, Krishna will reciprocate. So if we see Krishna as our young child, as Krishna that needs to be taken care of, he's a little baby, then Krishna allows you to experience that love for him as a parent. But on the other hand, if you want to experience Krishna as your supreme master, then he will allow you to experience it as a servant. So even in the spiritual world, there is varieties of ways in which we can love Krishna, just as in the material world, we have varieties of ways in which we express our love for Krishna. So Krishna rewards all the devotees equally according to their different intensities of love for him. So the deciding factor here is our intensity of love for Krishna. And in which mood? Is it in the servant mood, in the friend mood, in the parental mood? Or is it in the Madhurya ras? Or is it in the Shantaras? If it is in the Shantaras, then you will be worshipping Narayana and not Krishna. So Prabhupada writes, in the material world, the same reciprocations of feelings are there. And they are equally exchanged by the Lord with the different types of worshippers, which means you and I are worshipping Krishna. Only each of us know personally what is our mood with Krishna. Are we worshipping him as a master, or are we worshipping him as a friend, or are we worshipping him as a parent or a lover? Only we know what our internal feeling is, and Krishna knows it. And Shastra say, whatever your internal rasa is, you should keep it secret. No need to tell anybody what rasa you are experiencing with Krishna. Krishna knows, and Krishna will reciprocate. Even in this material world, you can experience Krishna's mercy depending on your intensity of love and your expression of love to him. So this is for all devotees. But what about the pure devotees? Prabhupada writes, the pure devotees both here and in the transcendental abode, which means both when pure devotees come to the material cosmos and when pure devotees, the Nitya Siddhas, are there in the spiritual world. Srila Prabhupada is writing, the pure devotees both here and in the transcendental abode associate with him in person and are able to render personal service to the Lord and thus derive transcendental bliss in his loving service. So the pure devotees have direct interaction with Krishna. They see Krishna in the material world. So there is a nice pastime of Srila Prabhupada in Los Angeles. The deity there is called Dwarkadish, that Srila Prabhupada established. When Prabhupada left India, in his mind, he decided he will never step foot in India ever again. Because he was so disgusted with India. Why was he disgusted? For 5-6 years, he tried to propagate Krishna consciousness in India, and not a single soul or very few souls would actually take it up. And Srila Prabhupada was absolutely bewildered and disgusted that Indians don't want to worship Krishna. And he remembered that his spiritual master had given him an instruction to go preach in English, go preach in the West, and if he ever gets money, he should print books. So when Prabhupada left India on that commercial ship, he had made up his mind, he will never come back to India ever again. But then something happened in Los Angeles. So this was 2 years or 3 years after Prabhupada had been in the US. And Prabhupada was visiting Los Angeles. And the deities spoke to him directly. And they told him, you must go back to India and preach, because that's where it is going to take off next. So at that time, Prabhupada revealed that the deities had given him direct instructions that he must go back to India to now preach there. And Prabhupada revealed this pastime to his disciples in Los Angeles. And he said, the deities have given me a clear instruction. And that's when Prabhupada makes his first trip back to India. I think 4 or 5 years after he left India. He comes back to India and he does a wonderful thing. He brings all his Western disciples with him. Shaved head, shika, getting up early in the morning, cooking for Prabhupada, taking care of him. They have learned Sanskrit shlokas, they are learning Bhagavad Gita, they are doing Mangalarti in the morning. And Prabhupada called his Western disciples his white dancing elephants. And he said, when the Indians see my white dancing elephants, they will take up to Krishna consciousness. So the deities personally spoke to Prabhupada in Los Angeles that caused Prabhupada to come back to India. And then, of course, the movement spread far and wide in India. There are a lot more devotees of ISKCON today in India than overseas. So Prabhupada realized that his spiritual master had given him the perfect instruction: go to the West, preach. And then Prabhupada brilliantly decided to bring his Western disciples to India. And in the 1970s, when the Indians saw the Western disciples leading austere lives and serving Krishna so nicely, they also took up to Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada used to say, when I was in India, there are many families who had 3-4 sons, and I would go beg them, please give me one of your sons. I will train him to be a devotee of Krishna. And like this, he approached many wealthy families and many families with many children, sons. Because in order for Prabhupada to establish ISKCON in India, he needed help and support. He needed brahmacharis. But not a single parent in India was willing to give up their child to Srila Prabhupada so that he could train them in Krishna consciousness. He could train them in deity worship. He could train them in preaching. Not one. They would refuse. Every time Prabhupada asked, they would refuse. That's what really disgusted Prabhupada. And the opposite happened in the United States. When Prabhupada went to the US, his disciples were as young as 14 years old. 14, 15, 16-year-olds taking Diksha from Prabhupada, shaved their heads, gave up eating meat, gave up alcohol, woke up at 3:30 in the morning, simply because Prabhupada said so. So there is one very dear disciple of Srila Prabhupada called His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj. He lives in Boston. He was fundamentally responsible for raising the funds and building and constructing the temple in Juhu, in Mumbai. Prabhupada gave him that responsibility. He is the only son of very well-known, very wealthy attorneys in the US. He was barely in his 21 when he joined Prabhupada's movement. And one day his mother came crying to Prabhupada. She said, "You have taken away my only child. Please return him to me." And Prabhupada told his mother, "I am not keeping anybody here against their wish. They are free to leave whenever they want." And Prabhupada called Giriraj. By now, Giriraj has been initiated. And I think he has also taken sannyas. So Prabhupada asked, "Giriraj, your mother wants you back." And Giriraj looked at his mother and said, "No, Prabhupada, I want to stay with you." Finished, over. So Prabhupada said, "I'm not forcing anybody to stay with me. They are here out of their own free will." And that was it. Giriraj Swami Maharaj told his mother, "I'm not leaving Srila Prabhupada. I've surrendered. This is my spiritual master. My life is for him." So this is what Prabhupada means, that the pure devotees both here and in the transcendental abode associate with him in person and are able to render personal service to the Lord and thus derive transcendental bliss in his loving service. So pure devotees have a very intimate relationship with Krishna. So they see Krishna and they get instructions directly from Krishna. As for those who are impersonalists and who want to commit spiritual suicide by annihilating the individual existence of the living entity, Krishna helps also by absorbing them into his effulgence. So in our culture, in Vedic culture, there is a vast sect of society that believes that the Lord does not have form. And therefore, they prefer to worship the Brahman. And when they worship Brahman, Krishna is so kind. He reciprocates even with them. He says, Acha, chalo, you're worshipping my impersonal form. You will get good results for that. What is that good result? You will come and merge with the Brahma Jyoti. They will not enter the spiritual world. Outside the spiritual world, the Lord's effulgence is emanating. These type of devotees of the Lord are called impersonalists. They prefer to worship the formless aspect of the Lord and they want to merge with the Lord. Merging with the Lord is considered an offense because you are giving up your individuality. So that is why Prabhupada is calling this spiritual suicide. Why is it spiritual suicide? Because you think the Lord and you are one and the same. You don't recognize that the Lord is separate and you are separate. So this is called spiritual suicide. But Krishna helps them also. How? By absorbing them into his effulgence. Such impersonalists do not agree to accept the eternal blissful personality of Godhead. Consequently, they cannot relish the bliss of transcendental personal service to the Lord, having extinguished their individuality. If you think you want to merge with Brahman, it means you have to give up your individuality. If you give up your individuality, then the concept of service completely disappears. Where is the opportunity for you to perform any personal service to the Lord if you think you and the Lord are one and the same? This is spiritual suicide. And as Krishna himself says in the Bhagavad Gita later on, that focusing on his Brahman aspect, he says it's difficult and problematic. Two words that Lord Krishna himself uses, saying why you should not worship his formless aspect. One, it is difficult to achieve, and two, it is problematic. The problematic side, Prabhupada explains. Some of them who are not firmly situated, even in the impersonal existence, return to this material field to exhibit their dormant desires for activities. So after going to the Brahma Jyoti, how long will you be there? Doing nothing. Because you've given up your individuality. So this is why Krishna calls this problematic. Problematic means somehow there may be some dormant desire that you want to fulfill, finished. You have to just come back to the material planet again. After working so hard over multiple lifetimes to get to Brahma Jyoti, you can fall back right again into the material world. Whereas Krishna promises whoever enters the spiritual planets do not have to return again. He does not give this guarantee to those who enter his Brahma Jyoti or who merge with his Brahma Jyoti. This promise Krishna does not make to those who worship his formless. They are not admitted into the spiritual planets, but they are again given a chance to act on the material planets. So it's like starting from zero again. Clock is reset, you have to start all over. So now we have talked about the pure devotees. We have then talked about those who worship the formless aspect of the Lord. And now we're going to talk about those who are interested in material desires. For those who are fruitive workers, the Lord awards the desired results of their prescribed duties as the Yagneshwara. And those who are yogis, seeking mystic powers, are awarded such powers. So which means, for those who are following the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, they want this, that, and the other. As long as they do their yajna and puja, the Lord will give them what they want. If they worship demigod A, they will get whatever that demigod is responsible for. If they worship demigod B, they will get whatever demigod B has to give them. Demigods are like shopkeepers. They will sell you what is on the shelf, as long as you pay the price. But what about those who practice Ashtanga Yoga? Generally, people practice Ashtanga Yoga. There are some people who want to achieve mystic powers, the power to create planets, the power to destroy planets, the power to become huge, the power to create things out of thin air. So Krishna is so kind. He even gives the yogis this kind of mystic powers. In other words, everyone is dependent for success upon his mercy alone, and all kinds of spiritual processes are but different degrees of success on the same path. Which means, whether you believe in Krishna or not, whether you worship in Krishna or not, Krishna is only supplying you everything. Therefore, Srila, that is why Krishna says, in all respects, people are worshipping me. Unknowingly, they are worshipping me because it is because of my mercy, I'm giving them the wealth or whatever it is that they desire. In other words, everyone is dependent for success upon his mercy alone. My dear devotees, you and I cannot even wake up in the morning if Krishna doesn't grant you that extra day. You and I cannot get a job that we apply for unless Krishna sanctions it. If you want to go on a yatra, Krishna has to sanction that also. Every little thing in our life is sanctioned by Krishna. Therefore, in the last sentence, Srila Prabhupada is writing, unless therefore one comes to the highest perfection of Krishna consciousness, all attempts remain imperfect. Without Krishna, our attempts are imperfect. With Krishna, our attempts are perfect. And here is where Srila Prabhupada refers to this particular shloka in Srimad Bhagavatam. We will go to Srimad Bhagavatam and read the shloka, but it is there from Canto 2, Chapter 3, shloka number 10. Akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udaradhi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. This is Sukadev Goswami speaking to Parikshit Maharaj, and we'll come to those shlokas. Whether one is without desire, what does it mean to not have desire? We discussed, as a human being, we cannot have no desires because we cannot live without desires. So what does it mean? Akama means what? Akama means your only desire is to please Krishna, and that is called desirelessness, which is the condition of the devotees. Whether one is without desire or is desirous of all fruitive results or is after liberation, one should with all efforts try to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead for complete perfection, culminating in Krishna consciousness. So Sukadev Goswami is telling Parikshit Maharaj, it's okay. You may have n number of material desires. It's okay. You may have desire for moksha. Even moksha is considered a material desire because that desire has nothing to do with serving Krishna. So even moksha is contaminated. So Sukadeva Goswami is saying, whether you're a pure devotee or you're chasing material results or you're chasing moksha, all of you should be doing one thing alone. What is that? We should try to worship Krishna for complete perfection, culminating in Krishna consciousness. So we'll come to Canto 2. I actually had to, after a very long time, I'm coming back to Srimad Bhagavatam, so I had to quickly read these chapters to find the trajectory of what is actually happening, who is speaking. So at the end of Canto 1, Parikshit Maharaj has asked Sukadeva Goswami a question. He says, now that I have 7 days to live, what should I do? How should I spend my time? And in response to that one question, Sukadeva Goswami tells Parikshit Maharaj he should primarily do 2 things. He should hear Harikatha and he should chant the names of the Lord. And in response to that one question, Sukadeva Goswami continues. So in chapter 1, he explains to Parikshit Maharaj what is the first step in God realization. When do you actually realize that there is a God? In chapter 2, when do you realize that God is actually residing within you as Paramatma? And in chapter 3, when do you realize that the Lord has a form as Bhagavan? And when does your heart actually change where you're ready to perform devotional service to the Lord? So since we have to read Shloka 10, we'll quickly read the English translations of the first 9 shlokas. So this is Sukadeva Goswami speaking to Parikshit Maharaj. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, Maharaj Parikshit, as you have inquired from me as to the duty of the intelligent man who is on the threshold of death, so I have answered you. One who desires to be absorbed in the impersonal Brahma Jyoti effulgence should worship the master of the Vedas, Lord Brahma or Brihaspati, the learned priest. One who desires powerful sex should worship the heavenly king, Indra. And one who desires good progeny should worship the great progenitors called the Prajapatis. One who desires good fortune should worship Durga Devi, the superintendent of the material world. She's the boss of the material world. One desiring to be very powerful should worship fire. And one who aspires only after money should worship the Vasus. One should worship the Rudra incarnations of Lord Shiva if he wants to be a great hero. One who wants a large stock of grain should worship Aditi. And one who desires to attain the heavenly planets should worship the sons of Aditi. The sons of Aditi are all the Devatas. One who desires a worldly kingdom should worship Vishvadeva. And one who wants to be popular with the general mass of population should worship the Sadhya demigod. One who desires a long span of life should worship the demigods known as the Ashwini Kumaras. And a person desiring a strongly built body should worship the earth. One who desires stability in his post should worship the horizon and the earth combined. One who desires to be beautiful should worship the beautiful residents of the Gandharva planet. And one who desires a good wife should worship the Apsaras and the Urvashi society girls of the heavenly kingdom. One who desires domination over others should worship Lord Brahma, the head of the universe. One who desires tangible fame should worship the personality of Godhead. And one who desires a good bank balance should worship the demigod Varuna. If one desires to be a greatly learned man, he should worship Lord Shiva. And if one desires a good marital relation, he should worship the chaste goddess Uma, the wife of Lord Shiva. So Sukadev Goswami is giving Parikshit Maharaj all these options. So he doesn't know what is Parikshit Maharaj's inclination. I mean, does he have any material desires left? He has 7 days to live. He's been told he should chant. He's been told he should hear. All 7 days, that's all he should do. Remember, this is just the beginning. This is just a conversation going on between them. The Bhagavatam, technically the pastimes of the Lord have not begun yet. Sukadev Goswami has not started talking about the pastimes. He's trying to figure out what is this Parikshit Maharaj wanting to do. Does he want to protect his kingdom? What does he want to do? So he's giving him all these options. He's telling him, if you want to do this, if you want to gain this, these are various demigods you can worship. Then in the next 8th shloka, Shukadev Goswami is telling Parikshit Maharaj, one should worship Lord Vishnu or his devotee for spiritual advancement and knowledge. So what is Sukadev Goswami saying? If anybody wants to get spiritual knowledge, they should worship Lord Vishnu or his devotee. And for protection of heredity and advancement of a dynasty, one should worship the various demigods. So now Sukadev Goswami has given him 2 options. You want spiritual knowledge, you have to head towards Vishnu. You want material things, head towards the demigods. One who desires domination over a kingdom or an empire should worship the Manus. One who desires victory over an enemy should worship the demons. And one who desires sense gratification should worship the moon. And then, but one who desires nothing of material enjoyment should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Sukadev Goswami is saying, in case you have no more material desires left in you, you're done. He's saying, worship Lord Hari. And it is the 10th shloka that Prabhupada has referred to in Bhagavad Gita. So we already read the shloka, but let's read the purport very quickly. Akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udharadhi tivrena bhakti yogena yajate purusham param. So finally Sukadev Goswami says, actually it doesn't matter if you have material desires, if you want to merge with Brahma Jyoti, if you are a devotee of Lord Krishna, anyway, everybody should be worshipping Lord Krishna. That's his conclusion. Every one of us, he is saying, should be worshipping Lord Krishna. Even if you have material desires, worship Krishna. Even if you want moksha, worship Krishna. That's his conclusion. It doesn't matter on what platform we are on, ultimately because Krishna is supplying us everything. Therefore, we should worship Krishna. Why should we worship the demigods? Ultimately, the demigods also go to Krishna and say, are you going to approve this or not? And Krishna says, approve or reject. According to that, demigods will act. Demigods do not act independently of Krishna. So now, as Krishna said, anybody who knows my position as the supreme owner, controller, and enjoyer of everything, they will immediately become my devotee. There'll be no more doubt left. There's nothing left to think about, ponder about, have any kind of doubts about. So this is why Sukadeva Goswami is saying a person who has broader intelligence will worship Krishna. And Prabhupada has written a beautiful purport which we'll read and conclude the class. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, is described in the Bhagavad Gita as Purushottama, which is in the 15th chapter, which is called Purushottama Yoga. Purusha and Uttama. Uttama means topmost. Purusha means the supreme enjoyer. It is he only who can award liberation to the impersonalists by absorbing such aspirants in the Brahma Jyoti, the bodily rays of the Lord. The Brahma Jyoti is not separate from the Lord, as the glowing sun ray is not independent of the sun disk. Therefore, one who desires to merge into the supreme impersonal Brahma Jyoti must also worship the Lord by Bhakti Yoga, as recommended here in Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhakti Yoga is especially stressed here as the means of all perfection. In the previous chapters, it has been stated that Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal of both Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. And in the same way, in this chapter, it is emphatically declared that Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal of the different varieties of worship of the different demigods. Bhakti Yoga, thus being the supreme means of self-realization, is recommended here. Everyone must therefore seriously take up the methods of Bhakti Yoga, even though one aspires for material enjoyment or liberation from material bondage. Whether you want to enjoy or whether you want to give up this process of birth, death, old age, and disease, both of it Krishna only is supplying. So akamaha is one who has no material desire. A living being, naturally being the part and parcel of the supreme whole, Purusham Purnam, has as his natural function to serve the supreme being, just as the parts and parcels of the body or the limbs of the body are naturally meant to serve the complete body. We were created to serve the Supreme Lord, therefore our only duty is to serve the Supreme Lord and to please him. So Prabhupada is using the analogy of the parts of the body. The various parts of the body live to serve the stomach. When the stomach processes the food, it then gives energy to all the body parts. So we ultimately, the source of our energy is Krishna. He is the source of everything. So why not just worship him? Right? So it's natural for us to serve the Supreme Lord. Desireless means, therefore, not to be inert like the stone, but to be conscious of one's actual position and thus desire satisfaction only from the Supreme Lord. Srila Jiva Goswami has explained this desirelessness as Bhajaniya Parama Purusha Sukha Matra Swasukhatvam in his Sandarbha. Jiva Goswami is one of the 6 Goswamis, the youngest, who wrote the Sat Sandarbha. This means that one should feel happy only by experiencing the happiness of the Supreme Lord, which is, if we know how to keep Krishna happy, he will supply us with everything that we need. This intuition of the living being is sometimes manifested even during the conditioned stage of a living being in the material world. And such intuition is expressed in the manner of altruism, philanthropy, socialism, communism, etc., by the undeveloped minds of less intelligent persons. So Srila Prabhupada is writing here that some of us who do not believe in the Supreme Lord may take up other things to do because we see the suffering, we want to help the other Jivatmas, so we may practice philanthropy, we may practice giving free medical care. There are so many other isms out there, but we do it without Krishna. And therefore, when Krishna himself says, those who do not accept him are fools, mudas, rascals, unintelligent, he calls them. Naradhama, the worst of mankind. So even though materially we may see other people doing good, spiritually there's a different calculation. So what is materially intelligent is not necessarily spiritually intelligent. And one who is spiritually intelligent may not be materially intelligent. Krishna prefers it if you're spiritually intelligent. So don't try to do philanthropy, socialism, this ism, that ism without Krishna in the picture, because he considers you less intelligent. So everything that we do, we should do it to please Krishna. In the mundane field, such an outlook of doing good to others in the form of society, community, family, country, or humanity is a partial manifestation of that same original feeling in which a pure living entity feels happiness by the happiness of the Supreme Lord. So even for those who are performing such wonderful services, they are doing it because they are seeking some kind of peace of mind and happiness. But real happiness exists when you are connected to Krishna. Such superb feelings were exhibited by the damsels of Rajamumi for the happiness of the Lord. The gopis loved the Lord without any return, and this is the perfect exhibition of the akama spirit, which means the gopis in Vrindavan went out of their way to make Krishna happy. And they did not want anything in return from Krishna. They were happy just serving Krishna. This is akama, being desireless. Kama spirit, or the desire for one's own satisfaction, is fully exhibited in the material world, whereas the spirit of akama is fully exhibited in the spiritual world. Thoughts of becoming one with the Lord or being merged in the Brahma Jyoti can also be exhibitions of kama spirit if they are desires for one's own satisfaction to be free from the material miseries. So there are some categories of personalities that are desperate for moksha because they want to end the cycle of birth and death. They are fed up and they are determined to get moksha. So this kind of desire to eliminate the anxiety in your life because you don't know how to deal with it, this is called a material desire. So therefore, liberation can also be a material desire. It can be contaminated. A pure devotee does not want liberation so that he may be relieved from the miseries of life. Even without so-called liberation, a pure devotee is aspirant for the satisfaction of the Lord. So this is the difference between the devotees and those who are following the path of Jnana Yoga or Dhyana Yoga. Both this Jnana Yoga and Dhyana Yoga, they are only interested in a particular outcome that's going to satisfy them. Whereas a devotee doesn't care whether he's materially intelligent or not. A devotee doesn't care whether he can really control his senses or not. He's happy if he's given an opportunity to serve the Lord. Therefore, a pure devotee never seeks liberation. He leaves it to Krishna as the final decision maker. Influenced by the Kama spirit, Arjuna declined to fight in the Kurukshetra battlefield because he wanted to save his relatives for his own satisfaction. So initially, Arjuna was apparently exhibiting lack of intelligence because he didn't want to kill his own family members, which means he wanted to make sure that he is also happy by not killing. But after listening to the Bhagavad Gita, but being a pure devotee, he agreed to fight on the instruction of the Lord because he came to his senses and realized that the satisfaction of the Lord at the cost of his own satisfaction was his prime duty. Which means, after hearing the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna understood it didn't matter whether he was going to be unhappy by killing his guru, Bhishma Dev. His job was to satisfy and please Krishna at the cost of his own satisfaction. So his primary responsibility was to please Krishna, not to worry about whether he's going to be happy or unhappy, whether he's going to get the sinful reactions or not. So this is the position of a devotee. A devotee will do anything and everything to please Krishna. They don't care for their own personal benefit. Thus, he became a kama. That is the perfect stage of a perfect living being. Udharadi means one who has a broader outlook. People with desires for material enjoyment worship small demigods. And such intelligence is condemned in the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna calls these people Hritagnana, the intelligence of one who has lost his senses. One cannot obtain any result from the demigods without getting sanction from the Supreme Lord. Therefore, a person with a broader outlook can see that the ultimate authority is the Lord, even for material benefits. Under the circumstances, one who has understood this, one with a broader outlook, even with the desire for material enjoyment or for liberation, should take to the worship of the Lord directly. That's what Sukadeva Goswami is instructing Parikshit. He's saying you don't have to have any purity. Remember, we said to practice bhakti yoga, the only qualification is you must accept Krishna as the Supreme Lord. No other qualification is necessary. No other purity test is needed. And everyone, whether an akama or a sakama or a mokshakama, should worship the Lord with great experience. So Prabhupada is saying, it's urgent for us to worship Lord Krishna. It doesn't matter what situation in life you're in. This is urgent for us to worship Krishna because Krishna is supplying us with everything. This implies that bhakti yoga may be perfectly administered without any mixture of karma and jnana, as the unmixed sun ray is very forceful and is therefore called tivra, intense. Similarly, unmixed bhakti yoga of hearing and chanting, which is what Sukadeva Goswami has told Parikshit Maharaj, you have 7 days to live. I am telling you, these 7 days only hear Harikatha and only chant the names of Lord Hari. So this is unmixed bhakti yoga of hearing, chanting, etc. may be performed by one and all, regardless of inner motive. So your motives don't matter to Krishna. If Krishna knows you're worshipping him, he knows that different people will come to him with different motives. But as long as you're approaching Krishna, he is very pleased with you. He considers you his devotee. Even if you pray to him and say, Krishna, please give me this, give me that, give me this. Even then, Krishna will benedict you, but he's happy that you're coming to him. And because you have come to him, he will help you progress. One day you will not worry about material desires. One day you will only worry, how can I please Krishna? So today we had a most beautiful festival in the temple called the Panihati festival, which is celebrated in every ISKCON. And the temple was packed. Of course, it's a Sunday, it's easy for everybody to come. But Giridhari circle that we are all part of, there were 8 or 9 of us in the deity kitchen, working happily, washing dishes, cutting vegetables, sweeping the floor, mopping the floor. We were so happy just doing some deity service. To have an opportunity to enter the deity kitchen and serve the deities personally. Some of us were making curd rice, some of us were making juices, some of us were making lassis, some of us were making Shrikand. But we were so happy just to be. The kitchen is hot because today they offered 56 bhoga items to the Lord because it's a festival. But we ended up making far more than 56 items. But we were all so happy just to be along with other devotees, serving the deities in some small way. Some of us cleaned the refrigerator. Some of us did a lot of dishwashing, but we were happy. So this is a mood of a devotee. A devotee is always anxious for any service in the temple, because we know if we serve the Lord may benedict us with his mercy. So I sincerely encourage all of you to please come to the temple as many times as you can to take up service. It does not have to necessarily be in the deity kitchen. To be in the deity kitchen, you should be chanting 16 rounds every day, and you must be following the 4 regulative principles strictly. And if you've been doing this for 6 months, please let me know. We are happy to have you in the deity kitchen next time, serving along side by side with you, doing something for Krishna, doing something for Radharani. It's the most joyful experience to serve the Lord in some way, shape, or form, or to serve the devotees of the Lord in some way, shape, or form. So I would say probably at least 500 devotees came today and took up so much seva. And then, of course, all of the other public joined in the festival. So much cooking. There was a sumptuous prasadam being cooked in the devotee kitchen. So my sincere encouragement for all of you who are attending the classes regularly, wherever you are, please get connected to a temple and take up some seva in the temple. Because without seva, you will not experience the bliss that we all keep talking about. Until you come and take up some seva in the temple, you will not realize this transcendental bliss. It's important that you come to the temple and take up some seva, side by side with the other devotees. You will experience spiritual bliss. And that is the most inspiring thing for us that allows us to continue to chant, to continue to read, to continue to worship Lord Krishna, and to continue to progress on the spiritual path. So my prayers for each one of you, that you will take up seva, that you are all worshipping Lord Krishna urgently, with expediency, as Prabhupada writes in the purport. It's urgent for us to worship Krishna. We'll stop here.